In this video, we are going to install and configure the Apache web server, which is going to finally turn our server into an actual server. So we'll be using Yum to do this. And I'm logged in as root because, as we saw from other videos, remembering to use sudo for me is a challenge. So I just run as root most of the time because I'm confident I'm not going to screw things up too badly. So the way we're going to install the web server is yum install httpd. So that will install the web server. We'll go ahead and let this run. And you might be asking yourself, hey Rich, I thought you said you were installing Apache. Why'd you install httpd? Well, that's what CentOS calls the Apache web server in its packages. And you're like, hey Rich, how am I supposed to know that if I don't know what Apache is called in CentOS? Well, you can use search with yum. So yum search Apache. If you notice, the install finished complete was successful. But just so you know, if you were looking for something, you can use yum search, and then you can scroll back up through until you find it. So if we go all the way up to the top, we start looking at these things: optional, Ant, Apache, Apache Commons, Apache, Apache, Apache. Oh, and then we finally find an Apache HTTP server. So that's what we installed and what we needed. So it's installed, but now the question is, what do we need to do next? And the thing we need to do next is see if it's running. We use system control status httpd to see if it's running. And we see that it is inactive, so it is not running. So we want to start that web server. The command for that, system control start httpd. And now we'll look at the status again. Oh, hey, it's running. So our web server is running, so we're going to try to connect. I'm connected to the VPN. If you want to do this over the well, actually, you have to do this over the VPN, so you need to be connected to the VPN for this part. Put your IP address in your browser and see what happens. And it says, oh, it refused to connect. And hopefully you remember that we configured our firewall to only allow certain things in from certain sources. And we can look at that with some of the commands from the previous learning we've done. Firewall command, get active zones. We have the internal from these sources, and public is used on anything going to E0 from other sources. So we're going to go ahead and modify the public zone to let HTTPS in, not HTTPS in, HTTP in. So firewall command, zone equal public list all will show us our config, and we are currently not letting anything in. So if we want to add, we're not letting anything in, so we want to add a service equal HTTP. So that's the command to add HTTP. If we look at our zone again, we are now allowing HTTP. So if we go back and try this again, hey, now it works. This is the Apache test page. So at this point, we have successfully installed the Apache web server. We've modified our firewall to let the traffic in. So hey, congratulations, pat yourself on the back. You are a server administrator now because your server is actually serving something. But this is the default page. We're gonna take care of that. If you look, it says you should add website content to the directory var www.html. So we're gonna go take care of that in a moment. But first, we're going to save our firewall config, because if you recall, using the firewall command permanent, using the firewall command does not change the permanent config, but only changes the runtime config. So we need to save our runtime config to permanent. So now our firewall is, our zone is changed. We can verify that with by adding permanent, the -- permanent to our firewall command to look at the public zone. And that comes up and shows us that now our permanent zone config allows the HTTP protocol. So our firewall is configured. Our firewall is configured to let the web traffic in permanently. So now that that's done, we're going to go over to the place where the web files are stored, var www.html. It tells us right here. And initially, we're just going to put something in there. If you don't know this, by default, there are some files that a web server will look for if you don't specify what file you want. One of those is index.html. So we're going to create a simple file called index.html. We're going to put some text in there temporarily. And then we are going to reload the page. And there's my page, Rich's page. Great, so now we have a web server up and running and serving custom content. But if you ever try to tell somebody that you know how to install a web server and administer their web page, they might want you to actually put some HTML code on there. Any number of ways you can come up with HTML code, but we are going to do it using this HTML code generator. So the link to this should be in D2L. Basically, we're going to fill out some of these forms down here. Description of the content. Put whatever you want in there. Some keywords related to page content. These are used by web crawlers that want to index your page, so they show up in search results. This stuff up here is just the title and meta. That's probably what's going to show up here in the box at the top. Now this is where we actually get to stuff that shows up on the actual page itself. And you can put whatever you want in here, or you can do whatever you want. You can put whatever, you can do whatever you want, but you do have to have an HTML. Rich's website's words. You do have to have an HTML page. I'm going to make mine very obnoxious. I'm going to change the text to yellow and the background to something dark. And then, so yeah, so once you do all that, your code is down here, and you can copy this, and you can paste it into your index.html. And now you can reload your page, and you should get your custom page. Wow, that is not good. Did I not change? Oh, I have black text. There we go. I clicked in the wrong place apparently. All right, so I'm going to be elite hacker guy, and it's very weird. So I changed this text color, right? And if I look down here at the code, it didn't actually update that. So this, oh wait, there it is. It did update it. It put the color in there. So that's cool. So now I'm going to copy this again. Copy. Go back over. Delete it. I had 20 lines, so I did 20 DD. I'm going to paste that code back in with the different text color, and now that's my page. So not a very awesome page. You can play around with this or do whatever else you want. For this assignment, the requirement is that the page has to be HTML, so it needs to have a HTML opening tag, an HTML closing tag, and actual legitimate HTML in the middle. So that is mostly what we need to do. The one last thing we need to look at is our web server status again. When you first install services, they do not get configured to start at boot time. So I know you guys don't know this yet, but this field here tells us it's disabled, which means it's not going to come up at boot time. So you might be confused. You might be like, hey, Rich, it says it's active, but it says it's disabled. Yeah, when the system boots, things that are enabled come on. Things that are disabled do not come on. But you can start anything you want once the server's up. So we manually started this web server when we installed it, but we want it to come up when the system boots. So the way we do that, system control enable HTTPD. and now it's enabled. So now if we run the same status command, we can see it's enabled. If you don't really like having to look at all these words, there is also a system control is -enabled command to tell you if it's enabled or not. So that was what we needed to do to get the web server installed. We installed it, we started it, we tested it, we added rules to let the traffic through the firewall, we tested it again, we put some custom code in place so we had our own custom web server, our own custom web page. Sorry. And then we finally set it to start at boot. So if I was to reboot my server now, when it comes back up, my firewall would still let the traffic in and the web server would still be running. And that is what needed to happen for success in this module.